Welcome, wrestling fan, to Friday Evening's Undercard. I'm Gentleman John, and today I'm here with the Wrestling Ranger, Firestar Pro Wrestling out of Greensboro, North Carolina. He's a solid worker and doing some good work for Firestar and other local promotions in North Carolina. Enjoy the interview. On the line, I have the Wrestling Ranger from Firestar Pro Wrestling. How are you doing this evening, pal?
I'm doing great. I just finished up a workout a little while ago and got a nice protein shake that I'm sipping on tonight before I go to bed. So, been a great day.
What flavor shake are you sipping there?
I'm a fan of banana. I got tired of the same old chocolate and peanut butter, so now I've switched to banana.
Switch to the banana away from the chocolate. This sounds like a solid choice. I don't know if I've ever actually had banana protein.
I didn't know it existed until recently, and now I'm hooked.
Yeah, they've started coming out with so many. I mean, when I started working out, it was like, oh, you had chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla, and if you didn't like one of those three, you were just kind of in a bind.
Yeah, you got to pay attention to the sugar content, though. That's key.
Yeah, for sure. Some of them have way more sugar than you think they do.
Yeah, because they got to make it taste good, so they just overload it with sugar. But there are some that have low sugar content, so try to stick to those.
And those are the ones you end up paying just a little bit extra for.
Yep, exactly.
Well, hey, appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely.
You had a pretty good big match last week. What was it, about 9 days ago now? I lose track of time. But it was the biggest card of the year for Firestar.
I've never been in front of 500 people before. That was insane.
That was a heck of a crowd. It was actually way more than what I was expecting, to be honest.
Yeah, my first Wrestle Revival was last year, and we get a pretty decent turnout. This is our biggest show of the year, and it's fairly decent turnout, but nothing compares to what happened this year, and that's no small thanks to all of the new trainees that have come aboard at Firestar Pro Wrestling and their efforts in getting out there on the street and promoting the show. So I think we as a unit have done really well promoting the show this year.
Yeah, and it was a great show overall. I know just from the time I got there, we set up the commentary booth, and then they started bringing in more bleachers and more bleachers and more bleachers, and I'm just like, holy cow, they are really, really filling out this building.
Yeah, that's a pretty big building too.
Yeah, it is. Certainly bigger than the normal Firestar building.
Yeah, it definitely allows for some aerial stunts that are not possible in our normal Firestar headquarters.
Yes, I have to say that. So that was the second match of yours that I've seen, and you worked the Battle Royal at the Wrestle Revival.
Yeah, me and I would hesitate to call him a friend at the moment, but me and Jamal the Titan had a little running feud going on that we've been promoting over social media, and that was intended to be our blow-off. Didn't quite work out in my favor, but yeah, we tried to build towards that over the past few weeks, and I think we did a good job.
Yeah, and I thought the Battle Royal was pretty good. It as good as a Battle Royal can be, because just by their nature, they're crazy.
There were a lot of people. I think we probably have WWE beat when they had their greatest battle royal, whatever it was called. I don't even remember. In Saudi Arabia, I think we may have one up them here. There was a lot of people in that ring. I was concerned that the foundation was going to come out from underneath us.
Yes, there was definitely a lot of humanity in the ring.
Yes.
So just for the fans out there listening, how do you sort of prepare yourself for a Battle Royal, going in there with so many people in there?
There's no good way to prepare for that. You just kind of have to jump right into the pan. It is a cluster of people. You have to do your best and try to get them over that rope. And sometimes the numbers can work against you. If you've got like 3 or 4 people teaming up on you, you're gonna end up on the outside. So it's not much you can do. Um, you just have to you just got to go in and just try your best. That's it.
And
Can't really prepare for that.
and speaking of people sort of ganging up on you, I believe you had a run in with the Pink Gang during the Battle Royal, and that's something that goes back for a couple of months now. You've had a little something going on with them.
Yeah, and that is not over. You will be seeing me and the Pink Gang in the ring together very soon. Um, we used to be good friends. We all trained together. We all started roughly the same time. And then Caden Pierre kind of let things get to his head, and he's formed his little group. They kind of pushed me aside, and I do not like that very much. And I'll get my comeuppance here in a few months.
Yeah, hopefully so, man. To catch the people listening up, you worked a tag team match, and this was back in April. It was Future Fire 9, and I can picture him. I can see him. He's the blonde haired guy with short hair, but I can't for the life of me remember his name.
Kent Wolf.
Kent Wolf. You were teaming with him, and you guys sort of came out on the short end of a deal, and then he decided he was going to jump you, and then his friends came out and they jumped you a little more.
Yeah. I thought that they were there to help me out. I thought that they were going to, bring Kent to his senses and have him think about what he was doing. But no, they joined in on the attack. It's 3 against 1. Luckily, the skinny dudes were able to come out and help me out at that time. But I'm not going to need the skinny dudes' help next time I'm in the ring with them. So we will see.
All right. Right on, man. Well, just to take a step back, all the way back to the beginning of your wrestling, what was it that made you want to be a professional wrestler?
I've been a fan for years. Been going to Firestar shows and AML shows and shows down in Charlotte with Queens of Combat. I've been a huge fan of local independent wrestling. And one day I was, at a show with my friend Jamal, and he kind of jokingly suggested that I should start training there because, Kozone runs the Firestar Pro Wrestling Academy out of that building. At the time, I've been, trying to get into better shape, going to gyms and whatnot, but it's really difficult to go to the gym and keep up with that. That's why, gym memberships skyrocket in January, and then by February they're down again because it's not fun. So I thought this would be a fun way for me to get into shape as well as learn a craft that I've been interested in since I was 8 years old. Back in the early '90s, watching people like Hulk Hogan and the Bushwhackers and Bret Hart and all these bigger than life personalities. And I'm getting up there in age. I'm not one of these spry 20-year-olds. I just turned 37. So I thought it would be a fun thing to try out. And I went to training and immediately fell in love with it. And I've been addicted ever since.
So what match was it, whether at Firestar or WWF or WCW? Obviously, you're in the same age range as me, so we can talk about WCW, and it's not going over our heads.
Right.
What match was it that you saw that made you say, "Hey, I want to be a wrestler"?
I wouldn't pin it down to just one match, but I will say DDP was a huge factor. He, I believe, was 35 when he first started getting into the business. So, a year and a half ago, I was also 35. I think I'm just turning 36. So I was like, there's no excuse. Like, I can't let age come between me and what I want to do. he got started late. I believe Batista got started late. If all these people can get in the ring, there's no reason why I can't. So I really try to push myself to overcome the obstacles that I had when I'm training with all these young kids. Like I train with Jack and Malachi. Uh, they're 15. They were 13 and 14 when I first met them. They have unlimited stamina, whereas I definitely did not. So I had to work extra hard to push myself to keep up with the rest of the class because they're all so much younger than me. But I didn't want to let that hold me back. I wanted to wrestle. I wanted to be in this business. I wanted to be a part of it in any way, shape, or form. And so that was what pushed me. I was like, if DDP can do it, then so can I.
You're the second person I've had on who cited DDP as somebody who convinced him to be a pro wrestler. The other one,
Stuart Snodgrass.
no. I actually think he may have been your opponent at Future Fire 9. It was James Hardy.
It was James Hardy, and okay, I see what you're saying. He's the one that cited DDP.
Yeah, he's the one that said, yeah, DDP was one of the guys that made me want to get into pro wrestling.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting to know. James Hardy is good people.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Had an interesting tag team partner that night too.
Frankie Swamp Tower.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So what have you found to be the hardest part of training to be a wrestler so far?
Oh, that is a loaded question. Physically, it'd be the cardio. Wrestling is hard, and there's no way to train for wrestling other than being in the ring. So if you don't have access to that, you can't simply train in the gym. I mean, you can try, but it's just not the same. People will tell you that all the time, no matter who you talk to. You cannot replace ring cardio with any other type of cardio. It's a whole nother beast. But outside of that, wrestling is probably the easiest part of wrestling. The hardest part of wrestling is character work. I am a very introverted person. It's very difficult for me to open up and be animated, be a character. That's another reason why I got into this, is because I wanted to step outside of my comfort zone and do something that I wasn't entirely comfortable with. That's kind of why I went with my Wrestling Ranger character. It's an exaggerated character. Like, it's supposed to be very cartoony, and being under a mask helps with that. I'm not exactly where I want to be. I'm still growing as a performer, but I feel like when I put the mask on and I step into that ring, I'm no longer Ian Strebe. I am the Wrestling Ranger. I can be as goofy and animated as I want, and it's all for show business. I think that is the hardest part for people to grasp onto, training wise, is getting the character down.
What prompted you to go with the Wrestling Ranger character specifically, as opposed to anything else that it could have been?
The very first conversation I had with Kozum, I am a child of the 90s, and I love nostalgic properties like Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles and Nintendo games and things like that. And I didn't want to recreate the Ninja Turtle thing. There's already, I think, multiple tag teams in Mexico that live off the Ninja Turtle gimmick, and I didn't want to do that. Well, partially because it involves having 3 other people. But I don't see very many Power Ranger characters out there, and I thought that would be a fun thing to introduce into this business. There's a lot of people out there that have Power Ranger inspired gear, but nobody takes on the fully Power Ranger character. And so me and Kozone were talking about that, and he immediately was like, the Wrestling Ranger, and we ran with it. It just kind of works in every way. So it was a collaborative effort between me and Kozo.
If you hadn't have gone with that, was there anything else you were thinking of? And yes, I do think it's good that you didn't go with the Ninja Turtle thing.
um, I have some things in mind. If I ever decide to stop using this gimmick and stop wearing a mask, I have a history being a chef. And they always say that the best wrestling gimmicks are just you turned up to 11. I have a passion for food. So if I ever have an unmasked gimmick, I may be a chef of some sort. Or, I'm also a gamer, and I had thought about doing a Nintendo related gimmick. I don't know if you remember the old cartoon Captain N, where he's like, some kid with the leather jacket and like the controller as a belt, and he had the zapper gun. I always thought that would be kind of a cool wrestling gimmick.
Well, if you go with the chef gimmick, make sure you don't do like the big fellow from WWF who would come down eating like the turkey legs and stuff. That would probably be maybe not a good way to
Bastion
go.
Booger?
Bastion Booger.
Yep. Not going to do that at all.
Steer away from that one.
Yeah, and I also don't want to infringe on Sadie Lee Moss's gimmick as far as bringing out food to the audience. I feel like that's a little bit too close to what she does.
Yeah, but she's a baker, and you're a chef.
No, it is slightly different. Slightly different.
That is different. So anyway, who, when you were watching all that '90s wrestling, who was your favorite wrestler?
Bret Hart. When I was a kid, Bret Hart was the man. Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler. Of all time. I bought his book. I always watched all of his matches. Even though he had a not so stellar run with WCW, I was still there for it. I loved it. As an adult, I have a better appreciation for other wrestlers. But Bret Hart, as a kid, he was always a man. I was never really a fan of Hulk Hogan. It was just always Bret Hart.
Well, we were kind of at that age where Hulk was already sort of on the downhill until.
Yeah, I never really got to experience him at his heights, like in the 80s, during the first 3 WrestleManias, during the peak of his fame. I wasn't really around for that.
No, I mean, we would have been about 3 years old for those.
Exactly, yeah. So I think he was, I think when I started getting into it, he was already at WCW. I didn't know WCW was a thing at the time. I think I accidentally found WCW when I was flipping through channels, and I think he had already formed the NWO, so he was already a heel when I found WCW. When I was watching WWF at the time, he was nowhere to be found. So yeah, it was always Bret, at least for live shows. I would get my exposure to the older stuff through like the Coliseum home videos. So I did see Hogan wrestle as a babyface at WWF, but that wasn't live. That was more through videotapes at the time.
Now, see, that's a little bit different than me, because I remember we used to be able to watch both of them. You could watch the WCW program on Saturday morning. It came on first thing after the Saturday morning cartoons. Mm-hmm. And then the WWF program came on after that. And then you had WCW in the evenings. So that was actually a lot of fun. I used to watch a lot of wrestling on the weekends.
Yeah, I regret, I can't regret because it wasn't up to me, but I wish I knew that WCW was a thing before I actually found out about it.
Yeah, it was.
Because I feel like I got into it too late.
It was fun when there were multiple promotions sort of. I guess the answer would be cooperating with each other, because once it started the war, I mean, that was a little different.
Right.
What was the first pay-per-view you ever saw, if you remember?
My first pay-per-view memory was Hell in a Cell. Undertaker throwing Mankind off the cell.
98.
So that was 98. I don't remember. I mean, prior to that, I would be renting the in your house VHS tapes from like Hollywood Video and Blockbuster and stuff. So I'd seen what would have been pay-per-views at the time, but not live. But I do vividly recall seeing the Hell in a Cell match live.
Did you ever sit there and try to watch the wrestling pay-per-views through like the squiggly lines
Through
on
the
the
grainy,
TV?
yes. So I did do that, as well as other things that I probably should not have been watching at that age. But at that time, my dad would also kind of hack the cable boxes, to where we would be able to see them for free. I think that's probably how I got to see that. Well, no, if that was 98, I moved out of my dad's house in 94. So I had to have seen some of the early 90s in your house before that, and I'm just not recalling.
Yeah, a lot of early '90s WWF sort of runs together. There's not a lot of memorable stuff in there.
Yeah, they really do. Oh, I know what it was. I remember seeing uh, Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, the ladder match. I was living in Florida at the time. I was living in Miami, and this is when my dad would hack our cable box, so we'd be able to watch them for free. And I watched. I believe that was WrestleMania
That
10.
was
Is that
WrestleMania
correct?
10.
I
Yeah.
remember watching WrestleMania 10 for the first time as a kid.
That is probably one of the very small handful of pay-per-views that I ever purchased, or I guess at that point in time I would have convinced my parents to purchase it. But yeah, that match was stellar, and obviously you had Bret Hart stealing the show to lead off against his brother.
Yep. Owen. Owen was so good.
Yeah, and he does a lot of stuff that really stands up watching it back now. Same thing with Bret. Like those are wrestlers that did stuff that holds up if you go back and watch it now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right. So that was actually one of my questions that I ask everybody, which is who was your favorite wrestler when you were growing up? But I got two other questions that I ask everybody, and we'll see where these lead us. Who's your favorite person to work with, either as a partner or an opponent?
Oh, that is a good question.
Or both. You can give both.
I would have to say Cam Carter. Um, he he's just the best. He is so underutilized and underappreciated. Um, his work rate is phenomenal. When we work together in the ring, I don't know how to explain it without exposing too much of the business, but he's just the best person to work with or against. I can't think of anybody that would even come in a close second.
Yeah, right on. I interviewed him at the last show I came to as well. He's well spoken, and watching him from afar, not being in the ring, yes, he looks like a very solid, very quality worker that he knows how to take care of opponents and work very good stuff.
Yeah. Despite our falling outs, I would also put Caden Pierre up there. He's also just a really great worker. TGA Moss, he's the quickest. He started training after me. He and his wife Sadie, they started training a few months after me, and they caught on so quickly. And I'm so proud of both of their success. But they are also really good people to work with. So if I had to list the top three, it'd be Cam, Caden, and the Mosses. I guess that if you count the Mosses as two, that's four. Yeah, those are my favorite people.
So here's an interesting one. Who is, other than LeBron and Cam, who are the most senior wrestlers at Firestar? Like, who has the most time in the business among the full time Firestar guys?
James Drake. I think people forget that he's also a Firestar coach. He's not there as often because he's out there making big bucks and just being a huge star that he is. But yeah, he's probably got the most tenure out of everyone. As far as the other Graduates, Cam and James Ryan, I think both started at the same time. And then there's Griff Garrison and Marcus Cross, who I think were the third and fourth graduates. I maybe off of that. I think Cam and JR were 1 and 2, and Marcus and Griff maybe 3 and 4. Yeah, those four have probably been in the business the longest out of all the graduates.
Okay. The last question. Your dream match with who and where?
My dream match used to be with Leva Bates, because I feel like her cosplay gimmick works well with my. I wouldn't call it a cosplay gimmick because I'm only one character, but I think it would work well together if we were either in a tag match or if she were to cosplay as like Rita Repulsa or something. But when I started wrestling, she was on my wrestling bucket list. Now, I think my dream match would be against Jason David Frank. He recently, I think, tried to dip his toes in the wrestling industry. I don't know if he's going to continue doing it or not, or if that was just a one-off gimmick. But I would love to wrestle Jason David Frank.
For anybody that doesn't know, because I'll be honest, that reference went over my head. Who is?
Oh, okay.
Who are we
Jason
talking
David
about?
Frank is the original actor that played the Green Ranger and White Ranger in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Okay, that makes sense. I figured that was who. I figured it was something connected to that.
Yeah, he played Tommy. He went on to be, other Rangers down the line, like Red and Black, but most notably Green and White. And I think a year ago there was a promotion in Laredo, Texas that he worked for, and he still travels and does all the conventions. He's running the convention circuit, and there's a promotion called Fantasy Super Cosplay Wrestling that runs GalaxyCon, and at some point those two are going to be intertwined, and Jason David Frank's going to be at a GalaxyCon, and I want the Wrestling Ranger and Jason David Frank to wrestle at an FSCW show at GalaxyCon. That would be my dream match.
That sounds pretty fun. Definitely sounds like something that would be cool to see.
Yep.
And speaking of matches, cool to see. What's the best match that you've been in the arena to see?
Let me think. I got to see Shinsuke Nakamura in Concord when he was still in NXT. Shinsuke used to be one of my favorite wrestlers. I mean, he still is one of my favorite wrestlers, and getting to see him perform live before he was on the main roster was really good. Chris Statlander and Clara St. Clair at Queens of Combat a couple months ago had a really awesome match where they did not touch each other for the whole match. It was just force powers versus force powers. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but entertainment wise, I loved every second of that match. It was amazing. I think Chris Statlander is one of the best wrestlers, period. Not just best female wrestlers, but just one of the best wrestlers, period. She's great. During WrestleMania weekend in New Orleans, I got to go to a Ring of Honor show, and I think it might have been Ring of Honor New Japan working together because Kenny Omega was there, and getting to see Kenny work live is just amazing. He is amazing. He's just great. He probably is, next to AJ Styles, he's probably my number one favorite at the moment. But getting to see him live was just phenomenal.
Okay, so that would have been, that would have been Mania weekend of 2018?
Yeah, this year was in New York.
Right.
Our honeymoon was in 2018. Yeah, we had our honeymoon in New Orleans, me and my wife. So yes, it was WrestleMania weekend of 2018.
Okay. I was trying to see if you were talking about the 2014 show, which I didn't think you were, because I didn't think Omega was that big into it, because I was at the Mania weekend for 2014, also in New Orleans.
I actually didn't get back into wrestling until a couple weeks after WrestleMania 2014. What got me back into wrestling? I had stopped watching. This isn't anything related to your question. I'm sorry. I'm just rambling. I had stopped watching wrestling around 2003 ish. I remember Brock coming in and getting injured in his match against Kurt Angle, but I stopped watching. And then in 2014, I saw a video that was posted online with Connor and Daniel Bryan, and that Connor video that's always going around, him going around talking to all the people backstage. And I was like, who's this Daniel Bryan guy? He looks really interesting. So I started watching around August of 2014, I believe. Seth Rollins had the Money in the Bank at the time and was being great as a heel. He had already turned on the Shield at that point. Daniel Bryan, I can't remember if he had just retired or I don't remember what he was doing around that time.
I think
maybe he was doing the Wyatt family stuff.
So I believe the Wyatt family thing was maybe before WrestleMania that year in 14. And then
okay,
I think he worked one pay-per-view match against Kane, and it was something weird. He beat him with like a forklift or something. And then I think he had to take the time off because of his first neck injury. And then he came back, and then that's when, sometime like mid-15 was when he had to do the retirement thing, which I think nobody really thought was going to be permanent.
And I saw him. I did get to go to Mania in Dallas, which I think was 2016. So that was when he came back. He had the brief intercontinental run, or was that in 2015?
He won the Intercontinental title. I think it was a ladder match at whatever the one in 15 was. The one in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so I started rewatching like right after WrestleMania 30, and then I was slowly getting caught up with things that I missed. Like I missed the entire CM Punk era. I missed when Edge was on top. I missed the Shield like at their peak. There was a lot of things that I had to backtrack and reacquaint myself with because everything was new to me at this time.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how we like go in and out of being wrestling fans? Like I was a big fan probably from 93 to 94, and then I fell away, and then I watched it a little bit here and there, and I was a big fan again from like mid 97 until 99, and then I watched some. I remember watching the WrestleMania from the Astrodome where the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian did the crazy match that nobody can
17,
top.
I think.
And then I remember seeing the Hulk Hogan versus Rock match, but then like fell away again, and it's weird how you just come and go on these things.
Yeah, comes in waves. I don't remember what your original question is. I hope I didn't get off in too much of a tangent there.
No, it's fine. It's good stuff. All right, and where can the fans find you out there on the various social media platforms?
You can search Wrestling Ranger on Facebook, and then on Instagram, I am at MorePhenomenal1.
And I'm assuming it Morphin spelled like the Power Rangers, and then
yep,
okay,
and then Ominal. So MorPhinOmenalone.
Okay. Well, hey, as we sort of wrap things up, do you have anything else that you want to share with your fans? The floor is yours. You can go for as long as you want.
Well, this is going to be a busy month for the Wrestling Ranger. I've got two shows lined up this week. And Thursday, I'm going to be in Charlotte for $5 wrestling. On Saturday, I'll be in Morganton, North Carolina for another $5 wrestling show. Next Saturday, the 21st, I'll be at the very first Lucha Libre Charlotte show, which is a new promotion being started up by Serpentico and a couple other guys from High Spots, Matt Golda and Daniel Connor. They're starting up a new lucha promotion. And the first show is the 21st. And then the Saturday after that, on the 28th, I'll be back at Firestar Pro Wrestling for another Future Fire event. And I've got dates lined up into October as well. But those are my upcoming dates for September at least. Thank you for supporting us, all of indie wrestling. Thank you for supporting Firestar Pro Wrestling. You are the reason why all of us do what we do. We are there to entertain you. We're all there to have fun. So let's just keep having fun together. Come out to the shows, enjoy yourself, and be more phenomenal.
Awesome. I appreciate you being on the show. Appreciate the fans out there listening. Talk to you again next time.